Well, it's been a long time, hasn't it? Over 3.5 years to be exact. And if you want to know where I've been this whole time, check out the card up top. I go into great detail there. But if you don't really care about that sort of shit, then that's cool too. Anyway, moving forward. As you guys know, I loved Nier Automata. One of the best games to be released in 2017, and it's now one of my favorite games of all time. The fast-paced gameplay, the complex but brilliant storyline, memorable characters, smooth controls, multiple playstyles, and the god tier soundtrack. Not only one of my favorite video game soundtracks, but one of the best pieces of music to ever grace my eardrums. And I'm a vinyl collector, so you already know. Platinum Games did a phenomenal job following up my exposure to more RPGs after the masterpiece that was Horizon Zero Dawn. So when a modern upgrade, it's basically a remake. Anyway, when Nier Replicant, the previous entry in the series, was making its way onto the current generation, I was hyped, especially after finding out that this story somehow connects to Automata's universe. So let's not waste any more time and let's jump in right now. Actually wait, before we do that, quick disclaimer. I'm going to be covering everything, and I mean everything. So spoilers galore from this moment on. So if you're one of those people who haven't played the game yet, turn off this video right now. I know some of you who plan on playing this. You know who you are. I'm warning you, turn off the video right now, play the game, and then come back to this video. If you don't do that, I will ruin it for you, and I won't feel responsible. But to the people who have played it, or the ones who just don't care about getting spoiled and just want to hear my opinions on the game, I welcome you on this journey with me. Alright, last chance for the people who plan on playing the game to stop watching this video and get the fuck out now. I'm giving you 3 more seconds. You still here? Alright, let's not waste any more fucking time. Let's dive into this review of Nier Replicant. Version 1.2 billion numbers. So Platinum Games wasn't in charge of developing this one. Instead, it was developed by Toy Logic, a company I know nothing about, but apparently helped develop Smash Bros for the Wii, so that's something I guess. But all these other games that they originally made, I know none of these. However, even though Platinum Games isn't in charge of development this time around, I'm probably going to butcher these names, so my bad in advance. Takahisa Tora, who works for Platinum Games, was hired to handle the combat design, giving a similar feel to Automata. So technically, they are involved in some capacity. Yoko Taro is once again the man in charge of the writing process, which, if I'm honest, needed to happen. So, when the original game was being developed, they created 2 protagonists for both Japanese and Western audiences, and as a result, 2 versions of the games were released, Nier Replicant for the PS3 and Nier Gestalt for the 360. Western audiences got the Gestalt release as a PS3 exclusive. This was apparently done because they thought that Western audiences would respond better to the protagonist if he looked like this rather than this. I mean, I don't know why they did that in the first place. It doesn't make much sense, especially because it made no changes to the plot or the character itself. Well, apart from the Western character being a father and the Japanese character being a brother. Also, a few dialogue lines were changed to accommodate for the Western version, but they're minor, adding to my question of what was the point? Like seriously, all that did was create an unnecessary divide between the regions. Well, for the remake, it follows the original Japanese release and was released to all versions, so no more confusion. So it's the Replicant protagonist I will be referring to for the rest of this review. So let's go over this story. The story starts in 2053 when the main protagonist, which you have to name first by the way, but his name is Nier. Even though Yoko Taro confirmed that's not his actual name, he's just known as the protagonist, but everyone calls him Nier anyway, and so will I for the review. So anyway, we find Nier and his sister Yona in an abandoned supermarket, and it appears that Yona is very sick. So Nier goes looking for food, where he's greeted by these demonic looking things known as shades, which he clearly can't defend himself against. He then reaches for this random book on the floor that he initially kicked away in the beginning, but he became desperate wanting to protect Yona. And power is what he got, as it's a magic book of some kind, and with the book's help he managed to defeat the shades. However, once he checked on Yona again, Yeah, there's clearly something wrong with her. There's black writing on her face and some black smoke emanating from her neck, and then she falls unconscious. Nier is now screaming in desperation, just hoping someone will come and help them. Well shit, this is how we're starting this? Alright, I'm all for it. I wonder how this is going to turn out. I wonder what's going to happen. I can't wait to see how this story unfolds. 1,412 years. Wait, hold on, wait a minute. What happened to them? Did Nier manage to find help? Yes or no? What about the black letters that was on Yona's face? Did she die in the end? And did it say 1,412 years in the future? This is some super ultra mega time skip shit going on here. And you mean to tell me that those two have somehow survived for nearly 1,500 years? How? Were they cryogenically frozen? Or did they meet Ra's al Ghul and dive into the Lazarus pit? What happened? Oh, trust me, those multiple questions will be the first of many when playing this game. Anyway, somehow both of them survived for thousands of years, but Yona is still sick. I mean, I just don't know. So clearly, Nier has been searching for a very long time, trying to find a cure for her sickness, whilst he's been taking random jobs helping out the villagers. Combine that with the fact that the shades are running rampant all over the place and they're becoming much more aggressive now. To top it off, Yona goes missing after Nier told her about a flower called Lunar Tears that apparently is so rare that anyone who obtains one can get huge stacks, meaning they can possibly get medicine to cure her. And this is where my favourite character comes into the picture, Grimoire Weiss, a book that can—
Book? How dare you!
Alright, I'm sorry. Jesus, someone's touchy. Alright, a magical tome. How does that sound?
A splendid idea.
Oh, fuck you. Anyway, Weiss is highly intelligent and possesses a multitude of magical abilities. He chooses to assist and joins Nier on his quest to defeat Shades that blocks his way after gently releasing him from his confinement. After freeing Weiss, the two statues come to life, known as Hansel and Gretel. Okay. And Nier kills Hansel. Once Yona is rescued, we find out that Yona still has that black smoke coming out of her. And it's then that we find out that it's called the Black Scroll, and her conditions has amplified drastically and can become fatal if it continues. Nier is practically on cold red at this point, and yes, I changed to the 9S outfit after this point because this looks way more badass than this, just saying. Anyway, Nier is desperately trying to find some sort of cure for Yona, and this is where we run into— oh shit, it's Deviler. Yeah, both Deviler and Poplar originated from this game, which just made me curious on how they turned up in Automata in the first place. But in this game, it seems like they're the ones who run the village. So talking to Deviler, she immediately recognizes Weiss and tells him to speak to Poplar, after asking her about the songs she was singing, which just so happens to be the Song of the Ancients theme. I still can't believe this was in the Olympics opening ceremony this year. When speaking to Poplar, she explains that Grimoire Noir, which is the black book in the beginning of the game, is the cause of the Black Scroll, and eventually will cause everyone to get it and humanity will perish. But when Weiss appears, he will use something called sealed verses to destroy Noir and revert the Black Scroll completely. By the way, the sealed verses are how Weiss can use his magical abilities, and there's a lot of them according to Poplar, and informs Nier that the sealed verses and the shades are somehow connected. So Poplar gives Nier and Weiss the possible locations of where these sealed verses can be, and one of these places is the Eyrie. Quite frankly, the most depressing place in this game. First of all, it has a grave vibe throughout the place. All the townspeople stay indoors and they reject all outsiders. They both think being there is a complete waste of time, so they head back to the village, but along the way they stumble upon Lunar Tears. Then this woman appears, telling Nier to back away from them. Yeah, this is Kaine. Someone with mad sword skills, a bad attitude, and someone who swears so much that she puts Samuel Jackson to shame. We now see why the townspeople were talking shit about her. She looks like she is part shade. Nier is forced to fight her until this big ass creature shows up and they team up to fight that thing instead. Kaine seems to have a massive issue with this shade. I mean, just listen to her.
Tear out your goddamn eyes and piss in the sockets!
Ooh, you kiss your mother with that mouth?
Once the shade is defeated, Kaine is ready to give up on life as she feels like she's got nothing else to live for now that shade is dead. But Weiss talks some sense into her and decides to join them. At this point, they just go from place to place collecting all the sealed verses that they can find. And after a certain point, they return to the village to check on Yona as she wanted to ask you something. And thinking about it now, at certain points of the game during the loading screens, you see these diary entries from Yona. Once you read enough of these, you begin to realize that deep down, she really misses Nier and wishes he was around more to keep her company. Even though she knows that collecting all these sealed verses are for her, she can't help herself from feeling the way that she does. But despite that, she's grateful for the little time that she does get to spend with her brother, and she lights up inside every single time she finds out that Nier will stay with her.
By the way, are you gonna stay here today?
You bet.
Really? You'll stay with me? Really?
Yeah, Yona, I'll stay.
Yay!
I mean, that's what's up, man. It's saddening reading about how she wishes she had friends, so when she tells Nier that she has a pen pal that she sends letters back and forth to, I'm legit happy for her. However, she explains that she hasn't heard from him in a while, so she asks Nier to go and check on him, which is this big ass mansion, and it's a little creepy. First of all, it's in black and white. The butler who is supposed to be accompanying you just puts you in this room and then fucks off. So you start exploring the place just to find out when you go into certain rooms the pictures change. Then you go back to the room that you originally were and you find out that Kaine's gone. So now you're looking for her as well. Once you've gone in enough rooms, you come across this blindfolded kid that's able to identify Nier from his footsteps.
You're a male. Young. Not even 20.
That's some Daredevil type shit right there. And you come to find out that he's Emil? You mean this Emil? How he went from a kid to an ice cream fan is something that's not explained here, so let's keep moving. Many maze doors later, this fucker is just standing here in this room. How does man tell me to wait in this random room and then just stand there having a staring contest with the wall? Do your fucking job, you waste man. What kind of butler are you? Anyway, Emil follows you into the room, and it's here that you find out that he petrifies anyone he makes eye contact with, so as a result he wears a blindfold to prevent that. He also shut himself away from the world due to this, and Sebastian, yeah, that's the butler's name, has seen Emil suffer through a great deal throughout his life, so he wanted to help Emil cure his petrification curse, which he has access to in the library of the manor, but he can't get there because shades are in the passageways that lead there. And he can't defend himself, so he sent a letter to Nier requesting for him to deal with them and get the documents, but Yona received them instead, so she misunderstood the entire situation. After getting to the library, they encounter another magical tome similar to Vice. This is Grimoire Rubrum. I believe I'm pronouncing that right, but yeah, you might be wondering to yourself at this point, what is this book doing here in this library? What's its purpose? Does it have any significance at all to Vice? Anyway, moving on, so it starts attacking the party, and after it's defeated, its pages scatter everywhere, and the page that Nier catches just so happens to contain the petrification report.
Oh, how convenient!
Emil mentions that it's written in a strange code, but Sebastian says he will try his hardest to decipher it. Again, where the fuck did you come from, my G? Nier and Kaine leave the mansion, but not before Kaine has a private conversation with Emil saying that he shouldn't be ashamed of his eyes, as that's part of who he is, which she can relate to because she's now starting to begin to accept her own body. You know, the part shade thing, and something else that I'll touch on later. She then whispers something to him about if the shade inside her takes over, but we don't hear the rest. At this point, they have all the sealed verses, so they make their way back to the village to check on Yona, but she's in a much weaker state now, so Nier goes to get some more medicine from Poplar, but she ran out, so she asks Nier to get some vapor moss. On his way there, he runs into Emil at the village gate, then collapses shortly after. When he awakens, he warns Nier that the shades are coming to attack the village, which happened pretty much after he mentions it. So Nier makes his way there. Then this Goliath appears, known as Jack of Hearts, and none of his attacks seem to do anything. Hey, I wonder if there's someone out there that we know that can help us out here. Oh, there she is. Where the fuck have you been at? Now that Kaine's joined us, we can take on the thing together and So both of them attack this thing with full force, but it doesn't seem to be doing much as it makes its way to the library where Yona is. Just mere yards from the library, Nier finally manages to take it down, but it's not over yet as shades made their way into the library, but they're quickly dealt with Emil on our side. But of course the fucking thing ain't dead yet, so instead they decide to seal it in the basement since they can't seem to kill it. But as soon as Nier goes to give Kaine the key, he gets impaled, and this is where things start to get interesting. Afterwards, you see this unknown entity emerge from the ground, which kind of looks like a shade but is upgraded with the ability to fly and everything. Kidnaps Yona and he looks like Nier, what the fuck? Yeah, you know all them questions you've had so far? Yeah, just add another 50 to that list. Seriously, who the fuck is this guy? On top of that, more shades emerge and pledge allegiance to it. So basically this is the leader of the shades. Oh yeah, that black book next to it, that's Grimoire Noir and incapacitates Vice. And then you see him in some sort of dream state where Noir states that they are both two sides of the same coin created to serve the Shadow Lord. Oh yeah, that's who this is, by the way. Noir also states that both him and Vice's true purpose is to fuse together and set Shades free to the world, and that him encountering Nier in the Lost Shrine and collecting the sealed verses were all set in motion by the Shadow Lord. So all we've been doing so far was apparently planned by him, something that Vice eventually denies after snapping out of it thanks to Kaine telling him to
Start fucking helping us!
Once Vice comes back to reality, he basically tells Noir to fuck off as he knows whose side he's really on. But Noir doesn't take that very well and tries to kill him, but Nier jumps in front of the way, heavily wounding him. Yeah, you heard me correctly. Even though you can clearly see that was a fatal blow right there, but nope, he survives. The Shadow Lord and Noir, they're like, fuck it, I can't get through to you guys, so they cut. And Kaine's shade is now starting to take over her, and so she asks Emil to petrify her to the door to prevent that from happening, and to also keep Jack of Hearts sealed away. After many hesitation attempts for obvious reasons, he takes his blindfold off and Medusa's her ass. At this point, Nier makes it his sole mission to kill every shade he encounters until he finds Yona and a way to bring back Kaine. The next time we see him is 5 years later and he's now a fully grown adult, and can I just say how badass he looks in his Yoho suit? This is his default costume. Yeah, you be the judge. Anyway, during those 5 years, Shades have gotten a lot stronger, even containing armor now, and the Black Scroll has been affecting others as well and killing them off in the process. You just can't have a happy ending in this game, can you? So we make our way to the library, and hang on, do you mean to tell me that it's been kept in this state this whole time? What are these fuckers doing? There's no way it should have been kept in this state. It's been 5 years. Yeah, some people might be saying maybe they just can't afford the repairs. And yeah, you might be right, but that's no excuse to just leave it exactly the way it is. I mean, I know there's nothing you can do about the Kaine statue, but at least clean the fucking place. And Popola, how have you managed to function in this building knowing this is how it is? What kind of village leader are you? Moving on. So Emil sent a letter to Popola stating that he located some records that could possibly lead to Kaine's petrification. So back to the creepy mansion we go. Once we arrive there, we see something's not right with Emil, as it's been 5 years since they last saw each other, yet Emil hasn't aged at all. What's up with that? Then he gives Nier the document that Emil referred to in the letter, which states that there's an underground facility beneath the mansion that contains methods that can control all forms of magic, including petrification. There's also this mention of a number 6 and a number 7, but doesn't go into details about what that is. We find this underground facility and discover these records, while at the same time it seems like Emil is having some sort of PTSD. The more documents we find, we begin to realize that this facility was used for human experimentation, for magic to be specific. And this number 7 refers to Emil, while this number 6 refers to his sister, Halua. So that explains why he looks the same age, because he's been genetically modified and he's been around for thousands of years. These two were converted into magical weapons, and number 6 was dubbed the ultimate weapon. However, the facility had a feeling that they may not be able to control it, so they created Emil as a failsafe to petrify it if that was to occur. That eventually ended up happening, except not really, because the fucking thing comes to life as soon as it sees Emil, breaks free, and then eats him. Well, not really eat per se, because it doesn't have a stomach, but still, you know what I mean. Emil stood there on purpose because what he planned to do was fuse with number 6, which he successfully executes, and that's how he turned into that. Fusing with number 6 transformed his human body into a skeletal being that can now float and wield an enchanted staff. Emil at this point is fucking OP. Not only can he float, but now he has the ability to look at anyone without petrifying them, heal you, reverse petrification, among many other magical spells. So wasting no time, now that Emil knows how to bring Kaine back, they head back to the village and do exactly that. And oh yeah, I forgot about you. So we deal with Jack of Hearts and finally kill the bastard. Kaine awakens, recognizes Emil immediately, and happy days, the trio is back. Except not really, because it's a Nier game and you can't be happy, as Kaine and Emil are told to fuck off by Devil and Popola, even though they're the ones responsible for saving the village. But nope, they ain't welcome. Nier is obviously pissed off about it after just getting his friends back, But there's nothing he can do because the reason behind this is simply because the villagers are afraid of them, which is understandable but bullshit at the same time. But anyway, whatever. It's here where you start to see Nier doubt Devil and Popola based on their decision. The next morning, Nier goes to apologize to them for jumping at their throats, even though he has nothing to apologize for. Even they admit that. Popola also mentions that she's found information that the Shadow Lord may be near the Lost Shrine, so they make their way there and is encountered by Gretel again. And during the fight, Nier launches a dark lance at Gretel, which he deflects, but the force of the attack knocks the spear out of his hand and stabs Kaine, and now she's most likely dead. Nier finishes Gretel off and Kaine's shade takes over her and attacks Nier, but thankfully Emil is with us, and this is one of the reasons why Emil is OP. Not only is Emil able to fully restrain Kaine's shade for Nier to damage, but he also turns her back to normal. Like, what? Afterwards, Nier finds this strange key fragment and brings it back to Popola. She mentions that the fragment could be part of a key to the Shadow Lord's castle. The fragment is written in some ancient language, but she managed to decipher keywords of the other key fragments, and she suggests to check previously visited locations such as the Forest of Myth and the Junk Heap, and you can choose where you want to go. The locations I mentioned you visited during part 1, but I didn't bring any attention to these areas before because they didn't have as much significance as they do in part 2, so I decided to bring them up now. During part 1, you visit the Forest of Myth when Nier has this dream where this boy was mouthing certain words which were sealed verses, dream and Forest of Myth. After Yona tells Nier about having a similar dream with the same words, he visits Popola and she receives a weird letter from the mayor of the Forest of Myth.
Oh, how convenient!
He visits there to talk to the mayor, but he looks like he's on LSD or some shit because all he's doing is spewing out random words. At that point, something started happening where both Nier and Vice became part of the mayor's dream and they were able to speak with him properly. He explains that both of them have caught something called the death dream, a dreamlike state where you live inside a dream indefinitely. This is some Mugen Tsukuyomi type shit here, but Nier breaks everyone out of it eventually. So during part 2, you visit the mayor yet again, but he mentions something regarding a strange presence at the divine tree, something that the villagers worship. Once Nier goes to the tree, it starts talking and it's back to the text adventure shit again. I didn't touch on this before, but I can't stand the text adventure sections in this game. It breaks the flow of the game to a fucking crawl, and there's way more of this here than in Automata. I just wish these sections were told in cutscenes rather than text. Anyway, back to this. So first of all of these are short stories of characters that have no relevance to the plot, so I won't go into detail, especially since I skipped over most of them anyway. And it's like the game knew people would do this because there's a puzzle in this and you have to pay attention to what's being said here because it will ask you a few questions about the story. And if you choose the wrong answer, you yourself will be kicked out of the text adventure and will have to start the whole thing over again. So do yourselves a favor, when you get to this point, just look up a guide on YouTube or something for the Divine Tree puzzle and be done with it. Anyway, once that's done, you retrieve the second fragment. When you go to the Junk Heap during part 1, you visit the two brothers' weaponry run by Jacob and Gideon. You visit because Nier wants to upgrade his weapon, but they don't have enough titanium alloys to do the job. But Nier volunteers to do it, so he gets them, brings them back, and then Jacob upgrades his sword. Gideon also mentions that their mum has been missing for 7 days, so Nier offers to help find her. Unfortunately, he finds his mum dead on the floor. He goes back to break the news to them and Gideon runs off in tears, but Jacob had a feeling that she might have passed, but he's at least happy that she didn't die alone. Nier leaves the two brothers and sees them off. A year later, the two brothers visit the Junk Heap, but shortly after, parts of the structure starts to collapse and Jacob pushes Gideon out of the way while the falling debris crushes Jacob, unfortunately killing him. One thing I didn't notice was when Gideon was trying to pull out Jacob from the wreckage, he ends up ripping Jacob's arm off. You don't actually see it happen, but if you listen closely, you can hear it. Then he sees a robot staring right back at him and he develops an immense hatred for machines as he blames that robot for killing his brother. Although it was Gideon that caused the wreckage, because you see him jump over a pipe and that pipe rolls over to other pipes, causing the structure to collapse, but he probably didn't notice. Back in part 2, Nier visits the weaponry and sees Gideon with an artificial arm after he damaged it enough times to the point that it needed replacing after being traumatized by ripping his brother's arm off. At this point, he's driven to the point of madness, but he gives Nier a weapon to enact his revenge against the machines with. Nier happily agrees after he finds out that it's working with a shade. 50 rooms later, we finally encounter the robot and the shade. Once the robot is defeated, we finally get the next fragment. Poplar then informs Nier about a letter from the King of Facade letting him know that he's getting married. Alright, so Facade is once again a place you visit in part 1. After Kaine joins your party, she informs Nier that the King of Facade may know something about the Black Scroll as he also suffers from it, and they've been trying to find a cure for years. Facade is a city located in the desert. It's home to the masked people, and they solely operate on the thousands of rules that they've created. They also speak in a different language to the main characters, which I do find interesting because this is the first time that we see a completely different civilization. When they arrive, the guards don't even let them in until they see Kaine. Apparently she saved a native kid from a pack of wolves and they've accepted her ever since. Once you explore the city, you're forced to go back to the entrance, and at that point, you witness a young girl trip over. Her name is Fira, and it seems that she can only communicate using sign language. After helping her out, she offers to give you a tour around the city, basically letting you know where all the shops are located and a few rules along the way. Eventually, you reach the king's castle, and it's here where you find out that they don't have a king anymore because he died of the Black Scroll. Furthermore, Nier overhears some of the villagers stating that the Prince of Facade has gone missing to the Baron Temple. However, none of the villagers can go looking for him because of a couple rules that contradict each other. One rule states that if the prince goes missing, that they must look for him immediately. But because he's in the Baron Temple and only royalty is allowed in there, it's a violation of another rule. What kind of rules are these? Fira, the only one with sense, says fuck the rules and says I'm gonna go look for the prince, but she's reminded of the rule that she can't enter the temple. But Kaine reminds the masked villagers of rule 1024, which states that they must abide the request of any outsider owed a debt, since she saved Fira after all. Then we slowly, sluggishly make our way to the temple. Jesus, she's so slow. We make it to the temple, find the prince. He gets abducted by this alien cube thing. The same cube thing then abducts Kaine. We then fight the alien cube thing that transformed into an alien cube thing Megazord. We then defeat the alien cube thing, rescue the prince. He does the item pickup thing from Zelda. I'm serious, he does the exact same thing that Link does, and then finally brings him back safely. After that, the masked people show their great appreciation to Nier for bringing the prince back. Now back to part 2. The prince, now king, is getting married, and he's getting married to Fira. And yeah, remember that I said that Fira was rescued by Kaine from a pack of wolves? Well, these wolves reside in the desert, and even Vice questions why wolves live there of all places, as they're usually located in forests, and as you also find out that the pack leader is a shade. Well, there's a reason for that. It's because Facade used to be a forest where the villagers and wolves coexisted together, but since they converted it into a desert city, the wolves lost their home and started waging war on the villagers, and they've had beef ever since. Keep this in mind for later. The night before the wedding, Nier speaks with Emil and he explains how excited he is for the wedding. He also mentions that he's jealous and wishes he was Fira. Nier reassures him that he will find a bride someday. However, Emil has some apprehension in his voice when he responds. And yeah, you probably know what's going on here at this point. So if it wasn't obvious, Emil is gay. And it's practically confirmed after his response to Vice's remark to him, stating that Emil misinterpreted what Nier said, but in actuality, it was Nier who misinterpreted. Let's rewind back to when Emil said he was jealous and wishes he was Fira. He doesn't want to find a bride, he wants to be someone's bride, specifically Nier's bride, as he's attracted to him. The day of the wedding, all 4 characters attend, and it looks like both of them are married now. But as I mentioned before, how no one can have any happiness in this game because an injured villager spoils the wedding, stating that the wolves are coming. And then this happens. So yeah, the pack leader kills Fira, and you find out that she can actually speak, and the reason why she didn't before is because she came to Facade as an orphan, so she was bound by a rule that states that she couldn't speak if you don't have a family. In her dying breath, she thanks the king for choosing someone like her to be his bride. What she meant by that is when she was young, her face was badly burnt and her parents sent her away to prevent disgracing their home, and that's how she ended up in Facade. When the king found out about her face, he didn't care as he loved her for who she was. Hearing her speak at the end made it more heartbreaking, man. So out of pure anger, the king wants to go and kill all the wolves, but his advisor advises against it, as the king was saying he will kill them all by himself, which of course is suicide. The advisor reminds him that he's the king of Facade and needs to act like it, as they already lost one king already. Come on man, the guy just lost his wife just 10 minutes after marrying her. Have a little bit of empathy. Nier and Kaine join him for his revenge, and the villagers eventually join him as well after revealing to him that there was a rule that states that they need to get permission from every person first before they can do this. So eventually we reach the walls and kill every wolf, and then the king deals the final blow to the pack leader. Afterwards we get the Lord Cerberus key. The last key is now back in the Eyrie when Poplar gets a letter from the village chief stating that the villagers are opening their services to outsiders. Yes, the same depressing assholes who told us to fuck off in part 1 are now welcoming us with open arms. Also, one of the villagers might know something regarding the sacrifice key. Yeah, that don't sound right. Vice is suspicious about this one, as it seems too convenient that an area with a reputation like the Eyrie will open its doors to everyone, and not only that, but have information on the Shadow Lord's whereabouts. However, despite Vice's suspicions, Nier doesn't care as he wants to find Yona. Ugh, this fucking section right here. So we make our way, and the villagers are still locked up in their houses saying the same negative shit, and also the village chief doesn't know what the fuck Nier's talking about because he didn't write the letter. So what's going on here? I mean, there's consensus stands in the middle now and you can talk to some of the locals, but once we speak to that villager mentioned in the letter, he starts acting weird.
Everyone. Vice! Beware, this man is...
Yep, it turns out they're shades, and eventually they all fuse together to become this thing. And this is the biggest example of how OP Emil is. So when Nier is delivering the final blow to this thing, Emil doesn't assist, although his screams are a bit over the top. So remember when I said Emil has access to numerous magical attacks? Well, we find out here that he doesn't have full control over them yet, as his ultimate weapon instincts kick in and Shinna Tensei's the entire village.
Damn!
What have I done? I killed innocent people. I killed them all.
But you saved us.
What an asshole!
Yeah, it doesn't matter that you just murdered an entire village, I can still save my sister, and that's all that matters. I mean, a little remorse would have been nice. And to make matters more fucked, that's how you get the sacrifice key. So Emil is clearly distraught about committing mass murder. But anyway, forget about all that because we've got all the fragments now, so we can finally enter the Shadow Lord's castle. When we arrive, Vice's suspicions has grown considerably regarding how easy it was to obtain these fragments, and as soon as you enter the first door, yeah, so it was these two who planned the entire thing, and now they stand in our way. When Vice questions their intentions for getting in the way, Poplar then accuses Vice of being a traitor. Consequently, the twins copy Vice's powers, but it's later revealed that the sealed verses originally came from the twins themselves, and Vice was just given a small portion of them. Later on, they tell Nier the true answers lie with the Shadow Lord. Then, they fuck off. In the next room, there's a hologram of people dancing, but they turn out to be shades. Kaine breaks down the next door, and awaits them are these shade orbs. And no, Kaine, don't move out of the way. It's not like they're gonna try and attack you. After dealing with them, they fuse into a boar. When that's dealt with, it gains armor. And this becomes a huge problem down the road, as this fucking thing won't die and it chases us throughout the whole castle. After a certain point, the people of Facade come to assist and force the party out of the room. And this is the last time we see them because they sacrificed their lives for Nier, Kaine and Emil. Back again with the twins, this is where shit gets real. It's here we find out that Devil and Poplar aren't human. And in fact, neither is Kaine or Nier, and are actually mere shells created by the actual humans. I'm sorry, what? So not only do we find out that the person you've been playing with the entire game isn't this person, we also find out that humanity on the brink of extinction created a last resort plan called Project Gestalt. The point of this was to separate the souls from humans for a certain time period and put them into replicant shells. we also find out that the humans aren't actually extinct and still live on. And guess who the humans are? I'll give you a little hint. Alright, so Deviler, please go into more detail about this project. I'm dying to know more.
Now let's skip the part where you stand there with your mouths agape and just get down to business.
Wait.
You're damn right, wait! I want to know more about this! But fine, since they won't tell us, looks like I will have to. Alright, so first of all, I have to explain one of the endings of Dragon Card 3 because it's canon to this universe. I won't go into full detail of that ending and the connection to the Dragon Card series because this video is long enough as it is, but I will summarize. These two celestial beings came from Earth from another dimension in the form of a dragon and a white giant. Both of them waged war, and the dragon ended up killing the giant and it crumbled into this powdery substance. Later on, the dragon was shot down by fighter jets and it too started crumbling into the powder substance, unknown to Earth scientists. Eventually you find out that these particles are called meso. The only issue is that people in Tokyo started catching this fatal disease called white chlorination syndrome due to being exposed to meso. What this did was cause anyone who caught it to chlorinate and become piles of salt or become mindless drones in a group called the Legion, serving this unknown god. At first only a small people caught this disease, but as the years went on, the numbers increased drastically, spreading to the entire world. This sounds familiar. That's when Project Gestalt was created. They created replicas of Grimoire Noir and were given to the public. The scientists wanted to see who could touch the book without relapsing. The person who would be resistant would be given full access to Noir's power and be named the original Gestalt. Those who didn't get the Black Scroll and die shortly after. The person who ended up becoming the original Gestalt was Nier, and I mean Nier from the beginning of the game. After this breakthrough, they got started on the Replicant program, which they created clones of the original humans using the human counterparts' DNA. So all the people that you've seen in the game, Nier, Kaine, the villagers, are all replicants. The only true human in this game is Emil. Well, not so much now, but before he was. The plan was to return humanity to their replicant bodies, which was projected to take 1,000 years. After 1,000 years, Grimoire Weiss and Noir would fuse together and force all Gestalts into their replicant bodies, which explains his set shades free to the world statement. But since Weiss couldn't remember that little detail due to, you know, that's why he was called a traitor, because he refused to restart humanity. Also remember that Yona, human Yona, also touched the book and started relapsing, so when Nier was screaming for help in the prologue, they were found by a charity organization center that supposedly handed out food and medicine for the survivors, but instead the charity was actually a human experimentation site designed to find the original Gestalt. So once they found out it was Nier, they conducted experiments on him. Deviler and Poplar are actually androids, making them the first androids created in this series, and they were placed as the observers of the entire project. For 5 years, Nier allowed any experiment to be performed as long as they could cure Yona. And it's on this promise and this promise alone that Nier did everything that the organization asked him to do. So Nier's soul was separated from his body as part of Project Gestalt, and that's how he became the Shadow Lord. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to continue calling him that because that's not a main character's name. That's what a 14-year-old names his gamer tag while playing Fortnite. I'm going to call him Gestalt Nier from now on. Since Gestalt Nier is the OG, the shades are linked to him, which explains why they were pledging allegiance to him. It's also because of that Gestalt Nier is able to keep the shades in line and prevent them from relapsing, giving humanity a second chance. Unfortunately, the scientists couldn't find any cure for Yona, however, and they knew that. Since Yona started to relapse before she turned Gestalt, her replicant self will always get the Black Scroll, as that's part of her Gestalt DNA now. So her fate is sealed regardless. One thing to also point out is due to an unknown error in the replicant's code, they gained sentience and started rejecting their original selves. In the end, with no word from the scientists about a cure, centuries after the projected date, Gestalt Nier lost faith and patience in the project and then took matters into his own hands by kidnapping Replicant Yona to force Gestalt Yona into her body. And this set Replicant Nier's quest for vengeance into motion. So as you can see, both Niers have the same goal, to save Yona. But Gestalt Nier didn't anticipate that his replicant would have the same passion as he did. Alright, so that's Project Gestalt and the reason why all of this took place. But the thing I hate most about all of this is that none of this is told in the game. I was totally confused during this part and why this was done. Because it's Yoko Taro and he puts his info in drama CDs and side stories. I'm sorry, no, that's bullshit. This is an extremely important plot point as it literally explains everything in this game. This is just as bad, if not worse, as finding out A2's origin story through a fucking stage play. Terrible idea. Anyway, back to the plot. You fight the twins once again with the best rendition of the Song of the Ancients theme playing in the background, and this time you end up killing Devilo in the process, and Propeller breaks down hard. And this is one of the most memorable scenes in this game.
Stop. Stop. Now you want to stop? You think you have the luxury to stop? You cut down my sister like a goddamn animal and now you want to stop? Popolo, wait! It doesn't have to— No one stops! It's way too late to stop! No one stops!
Mate, just that part alone where she screams "no one stops" just sends chills down my spine. You feel the pain and emotion there. Eden Regal, great performance. So yeah, Poplar's completely lost it at this point and destroys the bridge leading to Gestalt Nier. Emil protects the party from a suicide attack, but Poplar ain't having that shit. So Emil sacrifices himself so the other three can go ahead. Nier finally gets to the last room and sees Yona again for the first time in 5 years, but also encounters his Gestalt. After beating him, Yona wakes up, but she goes to Gestalt Nier and tells him that she doesn't want to be in someone else's body. So this is Gestalt Yona talking right now. She also states that there's someone else in there, which of course is Replicant Yona. Cause remember, replicants have gained a consciousness of their own. She bids Gestalt Nier farewell and her soul dissolves into the sunlight. At this point, Gestalt Nier is incredibly pissed because he waited thousands of years for this moment, just for his sister to be like, fuck this, I'm out. Also, Weiss has been pushed beyond his limits and he won't live much longer, but he will pin Gestalt Nier down so Replicant Nier can finish him off. After one hesitant swipe later, Gestalt Nier is dead. Replicant Nier fears the worst as Yona hasn't woken up yet, but Weiss tells Nier that she's alright. Oh yeah, Weiss is still here, but he's just part of the force now. But even that won't last much longer as he stays. So he reminds Nier to recall all of his memories with her. After entering the name you gave him at the beginning, she will wake back up. Kaine then leaves saying that she's got personal shit to take care of, and both Nier and Yona look out at the sky. A flashback follows of their younger selves just spending time together, and it seems that their gestalts have reunited in the afterlife. And that's it for ending A. Oh, I wish this was it, but we got to play the game 4 more times. After the credits roll, you see that you can experience Kaine's story, and at first I thought this means you can play as her, but no, what this means is that you get to experience part 2 from Kaine's perspective. I'll explain more as I go on. Once you reload your save file, you start from the point where Emil reverses Kaine's petrification. But before that happens, we find out Kaine's backstory through this shit again. Alright, so back to this text adventure sections again. And these are told in 3 parts. It's here we find out that Kaine grew up in the area and she's an intersex. For those who don't know, an intersex is someone who's born with both male and female biological attributes and characteristics. So naturally, the village welcomed her with open arms. Oh wait, sorry, this is the real world. As expected, she got bullied heavily for being intersex, and she was ostracized as she was seen as a freak by the entire village. Kaine suffered from severe depression and hated her body for years as a result of this. One day she was getting beaten up by local kids when this old woman named Carly steps in and backs her up. This is the first person in her whole life that's ever helped her. It's unknown if Kaine had any parents or not, but was extremely grateful for it regardless. Carly took Kaine in as her own granddaughter, and after that, they lived together just outside of the area. Carly also has an aggressive nature with a foul mouth, so we know where Kaine got this from now. 5 years later, both of them have developed a special bond and they can see each other now as family. Thanks to Carly, she's also learned how to defend herself now, so no one can fuck with her anymore. Kaine even says she can't remember the last time she was this happy. But remember, in this series, you already know that won't last. One day Kaine goes to get some fruits from the local supermarket, but when she returns, she sees her house up in smoke, and the one who caused it is this thing, whose name is Hook. Carly starts to crawl out of the burning building, but before Kaine even gets a chance to go after her, Hook pins her down, taking satisfaction in her suffering. Shortly after, Hook slams its foot down onto the house, killing Carly in the process and leaving Kaine mutilated, missing an eye, an arm and a leg. Hook then leaves the site, leaving Kaine to die. A shade named Tyrion attempts to possess her initially after agreeing to die, but after finding her picture that she drew for her grandma, she began remembering her grandma saying that she must live. She made a deal with the Shade to fuse with her, as they both shared the hatred for Shades. However, in order for Tyrion to keep his end of the bargain, she must carry nothing but anger, pain and violence in her heart, and if not, Tyrion will fully take her over. After the deal is made, her missing limbs are fully restored and now possesses magical abilities. So now we know what her beef is with Hook and her reasons for why she is the way that she is. We also find out why her left arm and left leg are bandaged. Kaine has spent most of her life as an outcast due to her body, and so she's convinced herself that no one will like or accept her, and she decides to shut most people off. The first example where you see this is during part 1, where Nier brings Kaine back to the village, but Kaine insists that she'll wait outside and meet you at the other exits as Nier goes to other locations. Obviously at first you wouldn't know why this is, but when you think about it, since she was ostracized by her entire village, she probably convinced herself that everyone will do the same. Another example is the night before the King of Fassad's wedding, where she feels like she shouldn't be there because it's a festive occasion and it's not a place for freaks like her. But Nier reassures her that the masked people only care about the rules they have in place, and since there's not one relevant to her, they don't give a shit if she's there or not. Also, you saved the king's bride to be from a wolf attack, remember? However, even though she feels that way and shuts her off from everyone, she couldn't hide her happiness when Nier convinces her that she has a reason to live, as on the contrary everyone else has told her that her existence is a total mistake. It's probably the same reason why she gets so close to Emil, as he also knows what it's like to hate himself. Kaine has always been able to show her softer side to Emil due to this reason. After Emil sacrifices himself, the next scene we see both of them grieve over him, but momentarily she starts beating up Nier as she doesn't know how to fully express herself around anyone else besides Emil. Another possibility could be because she doesn't want to feel any emotions, because remember, Tyrion will take her over if she shows emotion, so she had to remain violent to keep him at bay. Tyrion also frequently fucks with her mind by mocking her of her past or keeps her pissed off by constantly manipulating her, so she's always conflicted. Yoko Taro really knows how to create characters with substance, man, I swear down. Oh yeah, Route B, I forgot about you. So as I mentioned, you start again after Kaine's petrification is removed, and you have to go through collecting the key fragments again. However, Route B does add some extra cutscenes this time around, showing from the Shade's perspective. The first one shows Gretel feeling like he's failed as Hansel is dead and that Vice was taken away, and tells the little Shades that he doesn't want to be disturbed, but eventually accepts them after finding out they relapsed before the Gestalt process was complete. Gretel vowed to protect them as it now sees the little Shades as equals. The next time we encounter him, we also get extra dialogue from Gretel, as you're able to know what the Shades are saying because Kaine is able to not only understand the Shades but also communicate with them due to Tyrion living inside her. Gretel says that he will protect them as he feels that the little Shades, which are kids by the way, saved him and gave him purpose. Gretel also tells the little ones to not attack the party as they're not strong enough to take them on. Yeah, all this is going on as you're killing them. Another example is when a large ship crashes in the shores of Seafront. I haven't brought up Seafront until now, but it's a town located in the south of Nier's village. Popular tells Nier that the ferryman hasn't shown up for work in days and requests to check on him. The ferryman is someone you meet in part 1 who has a notorious reputation for having constant useless arguments with his wife, kinda like a couple I know in real life. This section is exclusive to the remake as it's one of the short stories told in the book Grimoire Nier. Once you arrive in Seafront, you find out from the ferryman's wife that they had another useless argument and has been missing for a week. None of the locals have seen him, so Nier goes to his older brother who tells us that he hasn't seen him in a while either, but he knows that he uses his ferry to deliver letters, so someone at the post office might know his location. However, when Nier gets there, you find out that the postman isn't around either. The postman has actually been regularly visiting the wrecked ship after he finds a little girl and he tries to bring her outside, but she doesn't want to leave. Yeah, because that's not strange at all. Anyway, the girl never talks, but he kind of forms a sort of father-daughter relationship with her. He brings her food, teaches her how to write and to sing. As the bond grows, the postman decides to call her Louise. When Nier goes to investigate the ship, Kaine and Emil join you after Kaine senses a shade nearby. Once inside, the presence dramatically intensifies and becomes too overwhelming for Kaine, so her and Emil wait outside while Nier presses on. Investigating the ship, you find out that this was actually used to transport slaves. Nier stumbles onto a weaker structure and falls to the ship's hull. Continuing on, we find a pile of dead bodies, including the missing ferryman. So yeah, if it wasn't obvious at this point, Louise is the shade that Kaine was talking about, and somehow she has a human form, and she maintains this form by devouring the seafront residents as she believes that this will make her a fully fledged human. But as Devler confirms, that's not possible because she doesn't have a replicant, so there's no way for Louise to become human.
Did he leave because of his body? I just want to be able to talk with him. I don't want him to be afraid of me. I don't want him to hate me. I want to move in a human form. I want to look at the sun with my own eyes. I want to sing beautiful songs.
Who the fuck is that? Poppy?
No.
Once Nier reaches Louise, Kaine and Emil join you, and because Kaine knew what Louise is, she is forced to transform, but the postman plummets below and Louise goes after him, which gives the party a chance to escape the ship. Once they're out of the ship, Louise's true form is revealed and what the fuck is this? Louise is one of the most powerful gestalts in the game, just slightly below Gestalt Nier, as its weakness to sunlight is irrelevant, as its regenerative abilities is way faster than the damage taken from the sunlight. The party have a miserable time fighting Louise, as some of the most powerful attacks barely make a scratch on it. Louise then does this singing attack that heavily damages the crew to the point where we can't even move. Louise tries to do the same attack again, but before she does, the postman stops her. Louise then tries to reach out for the postman, but rejects her. While Louise is distracted, Nier fires a dark lance and puts an end to Louise. Before she disappears, she questions how she ended up in this hideous body when the world is so full of beauty. It's hard to sympathize with Louise because even though all she wanted to do was become human so she can be with the postman, she ate the residents in order to do so. But then again, she didn't really know any other way. The postman feels guilty and apologizes for taking care of a shade that was eating the residents, and then I forgot about you. Yeah, so we break the news to her about her husband. Well, you can choose to lie to her if you want, but I didn't do that. So as expected, she didn't take it too well and breaks down. And that's the last time we see of her. Regarding the walls of Facade, we find out that the pack leader named Rock at first wanted to make peace with the people of Facade, as just remember they used to live together. Afterwards, Rock finds out that some of his pack are attacked by the masked people. On his way, he is wondering why the humans attacked them. When Rock arrives, he finds most of his pack slaughtered, and the reasons why the villagers did this was because they saw the walls as a threat to the king's wedding. The irony. After this slaughter, Rock again questions their motives and wonders what they have done to get murdered like this. Rock then loses faith in the idea of humans and wolves coexisting ever again and wants them to pay for what they've done. So when he kills Fira, it kinda makes sense why he went down that road. It's because the masked people destroyed their home and killed his pack. He developed pure hatred for the masked people when all it wanted to do was live together with them side by side. And when the king kills it, Rock only has one more question. What have we done to deserve such a fate? Before Rock dies, you see a flashback when he was a regular wolf, and an old man who appears to be his owner tells Rock that he's lived for far too long, but Rock must endure. So now we see the true intent to why Rock wanted to coexist with people again. It's because he lived with his owner, which he refers to as his granddad. You thought the feels was over? No, I ain't finished yet. When finding the Law of Robotics key, you see the same shade that was working with that robot, but this time with its mum, who's about to be attacked by humans. The mum leaves the child in the same room to keep the humans from finding the child. The humans attack the mum and she dies. Sometime after, the robot enters the room and we find out the names of the child and the robot. The child is called Khalil and the robot is called P-33, or as Khalil called it, BP. So when Nier encounters them, now with this shifted perspective, you're killing Khalil's only friend after his mum left him. To make matters worse, Khalil starts telling P-33 to stop fighting as it's not strong enough to fight them. But P-33 was created as a defense robot, so that's what it's created to do. Then Khalil starts begging the party to stop fighting it because P-33 is his best friend in the whole world and doesn't want to be alone again. Then Khalil falls off P-33 and Nier has to kill him and then destroys P-33. Khalil then apologizes for not being strong enough and wanted to be with P-33 forever before dying. Oh, why is this doing this to me? And if things weren't heart-wrenching enough, P-33's final words are Khalil together, BP alone, BP cry. Oh, you know what? That's it. I'm done. Fuck this. Fuck this review. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm done. All these extra cutscenes change the whole game and makes you empathize with the shades, the true humans, the ones who have to live eternally in a literal shadow of their former selves, with their consciousness, emotions and memories still intact, in addition to being rejected by their replicant counterparts due to them becoming self-aware. So the Gestalts are always painfully reminded of a reality that they can no longer have, as the replicants don't care about the Gestalts at all. Fuck me sideways, man. The rest of the game, you know how it goes. Find the key fragment, go through Gestalt Nier's castle, fight the numerous shades. So let's fast forward to when the replicant Nier kills his Gestalt again. We get a new cutscene where Gestalt Nier apologizes to Gestalt Yona and he feels like he failed her because he couldn't bring her back. We go back to the same supermarket at the beginning just to nail in the fact that this is human Nier, and we see him and human Yona sharing a cookie. Back in Limbo, Yona thanks him for always being there for her, and that's ending B. Oh wait, no it's not, because we find out that Emil actually survived Poplar's final attack. However, he's lost his body in the process. How many times do I have to say how OP Emil is? I mean, the guy survived a fucking explosion at point blank range. Yeah, he lost his body, but still man, what is that head made out of? He then wonders how the party's doing and talks about how he can't wait to see them again. Alright, now that's ending B done, and do I have bitter memories with this playthrough? Not the ending itself, just the journey getting there. But that can wait. Oh, it can wait. So Route C doesn't really add much to your third playthrough. Only a few cutscenes where you see the twins communicating with each other for the first time. In the first cutscene, they discuss their plans with Gestalt Nier after they found him. The second one, they talk about potentially using Louise's power as a backup if Gestalt Nier rebels. And in the third one, they talk about how they need to prevent Replicant Nier from killing Gestalt Nier. However, they are conflicted because they developed a bond with him and Yona, seeing him grow up and everything. That's why they both state that they didn't want it to get to this, but they had to remind themselves of the plan, otherwise Project Gestalt will be deemed a failure. But when you think about it, Project Gestalt was a failure as soon as replicants gained sentience and rejected their Gestalt bodies, and as Yona showed that both counterparts existed in one entity. So it wouldn't have mattered if both grimoires fused together and forced the Gestalts into their replicant bodies, because there will be a world where everyone would have two souls in them. Replicant Nier killing his Gestalt was just the final nail in the coffin. Furthermore, why did the twins wait until after Nier got all the fragments? Deviler claims that they didn't expect Nier to get as powerful as he is. Hello, remind me who his Gestalt is again? It's not like he's the OG or anything. What kind of observers are you lot for missing those two very imperative details? What do you mean you didn't think he would get this powerful? What did you think would happen after his sister got kidnapped? Drown his sorrows by eating wings at Raw Fried? With these terrible observations, really and truly, Devler and Poplar are the real causes of Project Gestalt's demise, not Nier, but they tried their best at least. Anyway, the only other noticeable difference in Route C is that you can actually hear Louise speak during that cutscene I played before, and her boss fight, which makes me wonder why no other shade has that ability. Anytime another shade speaks, you just hear garbled noises. I guess it was done to drive the point home of Louise's obsession to become a human. Also, you get an alternate ending when facing her where you prevent her from doing that powerful sing attack. Instead, she falls down and you have to run on her body and finish her off that way, which in my opinion doesn't hold as much emotional depth as the first ending. After beating her, this new cutscene plays where Kaine finds a letter on the ship from Louise where she tried her best to say something to the postman. You get this cutscene in Route B as well, but in there, Kaine just rips up the letter and walks off. But in Route C, she actually gives the letter to the postman. The letter simply reads, "Thank you." The postman gets a bit emotional because all he can do is remember Louise in her human form, even though she ate people, but So, let's get into my bitter memories with this part of my playthrough. So in order to get ending C, you must obtain every weapon in the game, from all the weapon vendors, side quests, and the ones found in boxes across the map. So here's the thing the game doesn't tell you about. One of these weapons, Faith, you can only obtain during certain circumstances. The first time is during part 1 where you visit the Forest of Myth. Once you rescue all the villagers from the Death Dream, you will obtain this weapon. I was already in part 2 where I found this out, so that was out of the window. Plus, I wasn't going to do that text adventure shit for every villager, so fuck that. The second chance is during part 2 when you visit the area, after they've opened their services. You visit the weapons vendor and buy the weapon that way. So much easier and less effort. However, guess when I found this out? When Emil blew up the village. So after collecting all other weapons and getting 93% in my inventory, what did that mean? I had to go through Route C twice. Son of a bitch! Can I just say how retarded it is to have a weapon locked to a certain area that will no longer exist after a certain point? It's bad enough that I have to bust my ass to get every weapon in the game, but to put this weapon that could have gone anywhere else that doesn't explode, mind you, no, let's put it in the one place that will become a gaping hole once Emil is done with it. And the creme de la creme of bullshit goes to the fact that there is no chapter select. Nah, instead, let's just get the player to go through all this shit again as punishment for missing one fucking weapon. Who is the dumbass at Square Enix or Toy Logic, whatever, that thought that this was a genius idea? And whoever it was should be sacked immediately. Okay, rant over. Let me calm down and bring this back. So anyway, the real meat of Route C is after killing Gestalt Nier for the fourth time in my case. Wait, before I continue, I must stress, before you enter Gestalt Nier's castle, make sure you save your current progress outside and then save it again on a different slot. I'll explain more later. Anyway, since Gestalt Nier is dead, every Gestalt will begin to relapse, causing every replicant to get the Black Scroll. And the first person we see get this is Kaine. So this is a continuation from ending A, when Kaine said she's got personal shit to take care of and was holding her left arm. Yeah, Tyrion is about to take her over as she's relapsing now. Once Nier checks on her, she tells Nier before she transforms to kill her as Emil isn't around this time to bring her back. Afterwards, Kaine becomes a shade once more and starts attacking Nier. During the fight, Tyrion now also becomes part of the force and starts communicating with Nier. Once you defeat her, Tyrion will pin her down and gives Nier two choices on how to save her, but they're both difficult decisions. The first option is to obey Kaine's request and kill her, freeing her from all her burdens, getting ending C, or making her a regular replicant again by wiping Nier from existence and thus deleting your save file, causing ending D. Oh great, we're back to this shit again. If you chose to kill Kaine, Nier will do just that, but kisses her before disappearing. Yeah, I didn't bring this up earlier, but both of them have romantic feelings for each other. Once she's gone, Tyrion tells Nier Kaine's final message.
Oh wait, she had a final message for you. Thank you.
Nier then picks up her lunar tear and says they'll always be together, and pans to the sky. And by the way, Yona is nowhere to be seen here. But yeah, that's ending C, and this is why I said create another save slot, because you're taken back to the title screen, and unless you want to start from Kaine's petrification reversal again, I hope you created another save file. Thankfully, because you created another save slot, all you need to do is go through the castle shit again instead of going through the whole of part 2 again. So if you pick the second option, Tyrion will explain that if you do this, there won't be a single trace of him left. Then the game will warn you 4 times that your save data will be erased, really rubbing in the fact of what's about to happen. Then you have to enter your name and see all of your progress vanish. All your weapons, magic, items, stats, everything gone. Afterwards, Kaine wakes up, no longer part shade. Then oh, there she is. Yona then tells Kaine that she's the one that helped Yona and defeated Gestalt Nier. Kaine is clearly confused as she don't know what the fuck happened, and then a flicker of Nier appears in her mind. She starts crying, the first time we ever see Kaine ever showing emotion. Well, Tyrion isn't there to torment her anymore, so that makes sense. But yeah, she says it's like she found something special, and that's ending D. And one of the little details I like here is during the credits, the voice actors for Nier have their voice actor credits missing, really emphasizing the fact that Nier doesn't exist anymore. When you reach the title screen, you see that the background has changed to one with a lunar tear. So now to start Route E, you need to get this, create another save file with a brand new name this time, and it must be a different name this time. You can't input the same name you did before because the game won't let you. So you're starting from part 1 again. However, this time, once you defeat Hook and you get to the part where Nier is trying to get Kaine out of the sunken place, instead of coming to the surface, Nier's hand disappears and Kaine goes deeper. From here on out, everything is untapped territory and also exclusive to the remake as told in Grimoire Nier. You find out that Kaine was dreaming the whole time.
It was all a dream!
So we're back in the Route D timeline, and it's been 3 years since Nier wiped himself from existence. At this point, because he no longer exists, Kaine believes she killed Gestalt Nier and saved Yona, but she hasn't been able to find out why she was crying on that day. So she goes to do what she does best, killing Shades. And yes, we get to play as Kaine now. She decides to go and check on Yona, but you come across a guard who's being attacked by Shades. Once you save him, you find out he was supposed to be investigating the Forest of Myth after no one has been able to get in touch with anyone there. Kaine offers to go instead as she's much more capable of defending herself, and as soon as she arrives, we find out all of the villagers have been killed. Next minute, you see robots that look similar to the ones you see in the junk heap coming out of the Divine Tree. Making your way into the tree, you start hearing these voices that seem to know who Kaine is. The voices also state that since the original Gestalt was killed, that countless replicants have died due to the Black Scrolls, like I said before. Eventually you run into the AIs behind the voice, and these two look very familiar, don't they? Just to confirm, they call themselves the Administrators. This isn't actually 2B and 9S, but they do bear a striking resemblance. You're probably wondering how these two know all this information about Kaine, Gestalt Nier and all that. That's because this tree is actually a sentient network computer containing a large database that stores the memories and DNA of every replicant in existence. So this is where the replicants are created. The admins test Kaine's skills by fighting this robot that looks similar to P-33, which Kaine wrecks without much effort. Then they summon multiple copies of Kaine to face, and she holds her own for a while but eventually gets overwhelmed. Then Emil shows up, like completely restored, and now has 4 arms. I mean look, even Kaine is confused. Alright, so Emil's with us now, and he takes care of the magical circle that's blocking our path so we can progress. And I recognize this. I was wondering where the automata connections will come in. So we make our way into the database, which looks a lot like the tower from Automata, and while navigating through it, Kaine asks a very important question that we are all thinking.
Emil, I didn't get a chance to ask yet with all the fighting and shit, but What happened to you back then? And where have you been? And why the hell do you have 4 arms?
Kaine, Look, it's gonna take way too long to get into all that now.
Fine.
Fuck me sideways. Navigating further, Emil states that he also feels like there's something missing from his memory, and eventually they both reach a room that resembles Gestalt Nier's castle, with this floating cube in the middle. This cube contains all of Kaine's memories. The more times Kaine attacked it, she started to hear Nier's voice, and in due course she attacked it so many times that she ended up inside her memories. And wait a minute, the callbacks continue, man, and it's appropriate as well. Look, even the health bar and map matches Automata's. You reach the cube again, and this contains her worst memories. These are all the shades she's killed, which remember are human souls, including Gretel, and no, not Khalil, man, I don't need to be reminded. Afterwards, the admins show Kaine her worst memory, which I'm pretty sure you can guess who it is. During the rematch with Hook, Kaine starts to remember that Nier fought it alongside her, but she still can't remember that it was him. Then Hook deals a massive blow to Kaine, and they just keep coming. The eerie villagers suddenly appear, tormenting her, while at the same time she's getting badly damaged to the point where she passes out. And oh, come on! In the middle of a boss battle, when things were just starting to get interesting? Alright, so back to this shit again, but I'm summarizing here. So during this part, Kaine is having a dream where she's with her grandma again, getting fruits from the supermarket, and she's genuinely happy at first. Everything starts turning to ash, and then she feels hopeless as once again she couldn't save her grandma. Then Vice appears and fully jogs her memory about Nier and their experiences, and I like how you can actually hear Vice talk during this. I wish every character spoke during these, it would have made these a lot more bearable. Anyway, we're back now, and before Hook can attack Kaine again, he is interrupted by Vice. How he's here and how he remembers Nier, I don't know, but I believe it's because he was part of Kaine's memories. Or like I said before, Vice is one with the Force and the Force is with him, so that's most likely it. Kaine remembers everything now and makes it her mission to get Nier back. So with Vice by her side providing magical assistance, they take down Hook for good. The admins then fade away into many particles, and this is where we see my favorite performance from Laura Bailey right here.
Hey, don't go. Gotta go back. Don't go.
Shut up, shut up! I already made up my mind. Nobody tells me what to do. I swore I would be a sword. I swore that I would be your sword! Do you hear me? So I am going to get you back, and I don't care what it takes! Who the fuck do you think you are to just up and disappear like that, huh? I'm the one who gets to decide what my life means to me. It's my life, and I'll do whatever I want with it! So quit wasting time like a brainless fuckwit, and get your ass back here now!
It then fades to the younger Nier laying on the ground, and after typing in your original name, your main save file returns, bringing back Nier into existence. Yeah, you see now why the game wouldn't let you choose the same name before. Vice bids Kaine farewell, and we're back in reality. This massive lunar tear sprouts out of the ground, and once it blooms, you see Nier in Kaine's arms, and whoa, 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 whoa! Nier clearly had clothes on the last time. Fucking hell, Kaine wasted no time. I mean, I know you wanted the D and everything, but Jesus! Look, is he even awake? He didn't consent, that's rape. Nier needs to make a Me Too allegation. Fucking hell, we're almost done with this. Kaine acknowledges that their journey may have been meaningless, but she won't change it as she cherishes this life. Kind of giving them a happy ending, even though we know the fate of all the replicants, which will result in humanity's extinction. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is ending E and the end of Nier Replicant version 1.2 billion numbers. Fucking finally. I must say, man, I loved this game's story once you truly unraveled what Yoko Taro was portraying here by making you play the game again and seeing from different perspectives. When going through ending A, it's all about curing Yona's disease, and you saw the Gestalts as just obstacles in your way. But when you found out that these are human souls, not only do you question Nier's intentions, but you also question yourself for controlling someone who is killing human beings and then shrugging it off. Obviously Nier doesn't know that they're humans until the twins tell him, but still I wouldn't be surprised if any of you saw Replicant Nier as the antagonist rather than the protagonist. Both Gestalt and Replicant Nier have the same goal, but they have two separate methods of executing it, and they both think what they're doing is right, but they still both clash because they don't see things from the other person's perspective. When you find out Devil and Poplar's true purpose and how they practically set up everything that Nier encountered, from getting Yona to go to the Lost Shrine so Nier can meet Vice, finding the sealed verses and putting all the key fragments in previously known locations so it would be easier for him to get them, that's all thought provoking, man. Each main character has endured tremendous amounts of pain. Nier has been programmed to always take care of his little sister with a fatal disease with no solutions to cure her. That's why he was so hellbent on finding the sealed verses in part 1, because it was the first glimmer of hope that he actually got. Combine that with having constant guilt for always leaving Yona behind and her feeling lonely all the time as a result, while also hearing about how much Yona feels like a burden. And to top it all off, when his only chance gets taken away from him and spent 5 years looking for her with no luck. I've already mentioned about Kaine being tormented from a young age because of her body and then losing the person most important to her. So it was nice to see Kaine happy again in the end, even though she was horny AF. With Emil being used as a weapon for thousands of years, forced to see his sister transform into a grotesque creature, shun himself off from the world in fear, only to lose his body completely and become a skeleton, and then carry the guilt of destroying an entire village and killing everyone just because he couldn't control his powers. These are the reasons why I kept playing. While I'm on the topic though, I don't like how the pacing was handled here. Having to play part 2 3 times just to get to Route E is just draining. Also, locking the real ending under collecting all the weapons is quite frankly hippo piss. Doing that should be an award or a sense of accomplishment, not a requirement to continue on. Anyone could make the mistake I made, and it's unfair to be punished like that. I'm being honest when I say I almost rage quit because of that. After playing the same thing 3 times in a row, I was burnt out. And when I realized I had to do a grand rewind just because I missed one item, that just set me over the edge. I had to take a small break to recharge and then come back. Honestly, Route C should have been cut altogether and have all the extra cutscenes put in Route B, as it would make sense there anyway, and then make ending B the part where Kaine turns into a shade. Oh yeah, I forgot that I played through Route A again using the other save file that I made after my main one got deleted, just because I decided to review this game after starting Route B, but realized I didn't have footage for part 1. This isn't the game's fault, it's mine, but I want to point out how many times I played this game for the review. Also, I wish that Nier interacted with Kaine during ending E, especially after that great speech she made. It would have had more emotional depth, and while I'm on the subject, I can say the same thing during the first battle with Hook. Now we know the true reason behind Kaine's animosity towards it. It should have been her who struck the killing blow. Nier being the one who does it doesn't make much sense. I mean, the King of Facade avenged his wife, so why couldn't Kaine avenge her grandma? Well, I guess she kinda did in ending E, but I digress. The voice acting is incredible in this game. Everyone did a great job here. I already mentioned Eden Regal as the twins, Laura Bailey as Kaine, and Liam O'Brien, man. I mentioned Grimoire Vice being my favorite character in this game, and it's mainly because of this man's performance. Anytime I hear him speak, I'm either laughing or engaged. This is ironic because the last time I heard him was Infinite from Sonic Forces. Ugh. Who would have thought a talking floating book would be my favorite character?
Book? How dare you!
Motherfucker, I'm complimenting you! My least favorite voice actor is Emil's actually. Not that Julie Ann Taylor did a bad job, no, it's just the way she delivered some of her lines, especially during the part where Emil was begging Kaine to not turn into a shade again. And also, this. Like seriously, did she have a car battery attached to her nipples when she was doing that? Like goddamn! Also, the character animations during dialogue could use some improvement. I mean, every character uses the same animation every time, and Kaine barely gets any animations at all. But anyway man, great story. Despite my bitterness towards Route C, I would say I was satisfied with this. Alright, we can finally get onto the gameplay side of things. So like I said, Takahisa Tora of Platinum Games was hired to handle the combat design, so it's just as fast paced and fluid as Automata, and I'm glad this was done because I saw the gameplay of the original and it just looked way slower in comparison. During part 1, you only have access to one-handed swords, and I had some muscle memory issues at first because Nier only uses one sword throughout the game, and I'm used to controlling characters with 2 swords. And yes, I know 9S also uses one sword, but I don't like playing as him as much as 2B or A2, so he's not as memorable to me. Part 2 is where you get access to 2-handed swords and spears. No combat braces unfortunately. And can I begin by saying I don't like using 2-handed swords? The attacks animation is too slow for my liking, and as a result it's very easy for the shades to attack you first and fuck up your entire combo chain. Now spears is where it's at. These are my favorite weapons in the game. They're just as quick as one-handed swords with a lot more power to it. The best example of this is the Phoenix Spear. This weapon is broken AF. It's the strongest weapon in the game at its base level, and it can be upgraded just like every other weapon. Don't be surprised once you reach a certain level to be taking out enemies in seconds. I mean, just look how long it takes me to defeat this mini boss. Like, that wasn't even 10 seconds. If you want a challenge, I would suggest either not using this weapon at all or increasing the difficulty to accommodate for its sheer brokenness. But guess what? If the game is going to make me play the same thing 4 fucking times, I'm going to use a broken weapon because I want to breeze through these motherfuckers as quickly as possible. I do like how the weapon you selected also appears in the real-time cutscenes as well. Once again, you have light and heavy attacks, and you can charge the attacks for increased damage. He can dodge roll to evade attacks, which is very responsive and quick, and combine that with a heavy attack, you can give enemies the quick turnaround. Something that Automata didn't have is a guard button, which is pretty self-explanatory. You can also parry attacks and counter them. The parrying system is kind of finicky sometimes though, as you have to be super precise with the guard button, and I swear I'm timing it right, but it won't parry and I'm taking damage. But those moments when you're chaining combos left and right and you catch that one oncoming attack and then countering it is one of the most satisfying things to do in this game. There's also a guard break mechanic which adds some challenge, but I don't like how the shades don't seem to react to your attacks at all. And what I mean by that is you're attacking a shade and that same shade will just attack you back, interrupting the flow. It's not a huge deal, but it is a bit annoying, especially from those big armored fucks who just swan dive into you, sending you flying. When Vice joins your party, that's when you get access to the multiple magical abilities. When you collect the sealed verses during part 1, that's when you get the different magic attacks, and you use both bumper buttons to equip them, and you can customize them to your liking. You can also chain them with your weapon attacks as well. Sometimes shades will drop words. What these magic words do is give increased attributes such as attack and magic damage, breaking armor, knockback resistance, etc. They even have secondary effects like reduced magic costs, increased chances of dropping items, and inflicted status damage such as poison or paralysis. So you can already make an already broken weapon like the Phoenix Spear even more broken if you equip a word that gives 20% extra damage. Like, you don't even need to level it up at that point. Type of items that shades drop ranges from healing items, temporary stat buffs, and ailments, among others. I love the way that you can quickly heal yourself just by pressing up on the D-pad, and the healing items are always the top choice, barely breaking the pace. Kaine and Emil also provide assistance once they join your party, mainly using magic, but Kaine uses close range combat as well, and Emil occasionally giving you a little bit of health. During Route E, you take control as Kaine, as mentioned before, and she's so fun to use. Unfortunately though, she's no longer possessed by Tyrion, so she can't use magic, which is a bit of a cock tease when you see her using magical attacks all the damn time until now. You know what else is a cock tease? The fact that one of her swords broke during her battle with Nier, which is bullshit because I'm defo seeing 2 functioning swords when she goes down, but whatever. But she more than makes up with it with her agility and her attacks. I mean, she does a whirlwind breakdance kick for fuck's sake. That's sick. You can only use her sword, but her weapon's power is, what? Yeah, that's fine with me. Seriously? And thankfully, the enemies were scaled accordingly for that insane amount of power, so you can't just one-shot everything. It's a shame that Route E only lasts a couple of hours, because playing as her is actually my favorite part of the game. There's side quests to do when playing as Nier, Kaine doesn't get any, but if I'm honest, I didn't bother with most of them, mainly because of the multiple run-throughs. That, and also most of the ones that I did were just fetch quests anyway, but do the damage map quest because you get a weapon at the end of it. Another one I did though was helping the red bag ferryman find an anniversary present for his wife. After you help him find a gift, the couple actually invites you for dinner, which is cool. I like that. I mean, it's the least you can do for getting me involved in one of your useless arguments 5 years ago. Nier then tells a story about how the dinner went and how unfamiliar it was just having a normal meal and laughing with a family around the dinner table. See, I wish more side quests had more interesting stories like that one. I mean, I might be wrong, but from the ones I turned down, every single one of them, except this, was just a fetch quest. My favorite place, I have to say, is the Baron Temple during part 1. Why I like it so much is, first, it plays one of my favorite themes in the game, and how the main premise of the area coincides with Facade's rule system. There are certain parts of the temple where you can't use certain actions. For example, you can't guard or use magic while destroying this red cube. That's the reason why Kaine got abducted, because she tried to use magic during that part. This is very creative because it teaches you the game's mechanics and alternatives to just slicing everything with your sword. Unfortunately, the same thing can't be said for the Junk Heap. I can't stand this place. It's a fucking maze. The first time you visit, you're guaranteed to get lost. Even though Jacob provides you with a map, it don't make a goddamn difference. There's so many branching pathways and rooms that lead absolutely nowhere, which have you fighting the same machines over and over. And the worst part is that you have to visit this place multiple times during part 2, which gets tedious. The graphics once again isn't the best I've looked at, but it works. I will say this looks way better than Automata does because of its more vibrant environment. Also, the set pieces stand out a lot more this time around. The locations that you visit are very easy to remember. The performance once again has problems though. Thankfully, it's not as bad as Automata where you need to install a custom mod in order to run the game properly. The resolution settings stay what you set it as upon exiting the game, so that's good. But what's not good is the constant frame rate drops. Fuck me, man, look at this shit. Granted, this doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, you can't play until it stops. Oh, and the game crashed on me twice. And when this happened, it just reminded me why I can't stand the fact that the game doesn't auto-save. The first time was in the corridor before facing Gestalt Nier. The loading screen starts lagging and then it just closed. I didn't even get an error message. And guess when I last saved? 2 fragments before in Facade. All of that could have been avoided if it just auto-saved. And yes, I'm aware that I should have been saving regularly because there's more than enough save points, which are these letterboxes. But I forgot to save because I was really getting into the story, which is my fault, I'm aware. But still, we live in an era now where we don't use memory cards anymore. Why in 2021 are we still releasing games that doesn't have an autosave feature? The second time it crashed, I learnt my lesson and saved before that happened again, but still, a patch has been released since then which fixed the crashing issue, but the frame rate thing is still there. Seriously, Square Enix,
fix your shit, man.
And the worst thing about this game is the text adventure sections. At this point, you can probably guess that I can't stand these. I praise this game for how fast paced it is, and these sections just destroys all of that. Look, if these were optional, I wouldn't have much of an issue with this, but it's not. Well, at least on the multiple playthroughs, you can choose to skip them. And at least I have incredible music playing in the background, even when I'm going through this shit. The soundtrack is once again magnificent. Like legit, man, the same energy that I got from Automata's soundtrack resides here. Again, I'm probably gonna mispronounce this guy's name, but Kaiichi Okabe, phenomenal work once again. Release this on vinyl immediately And yes, I know the Automata soundtrack came with the Replicant one as well, but I sold that already when I didn't know about this game. Plus, they remade the soundtrack for version 1.2 billion numbers, so I want a vinyl release for this soundtrack. I'm so glad I didn't rage quit and chose to press on, because I got to see why the fan base loves this game so much. After the great impression that Nier Automata had on me, I'm happy to report this game doesn't disappoint. After finding out about Project Gestalt especially, that's when things started to click with me. But here's the thing though, I'm not sure if I can recommend this game to newcomers. Like, the amount of things I've had to say should be a clear indication that this game requires a fuck ton of patience. As I mentioned before, you have to play part 2 multiple times to get the true ending, and if you find that difficult, then this isn't the game for you. To the people who love Nier Automata, I have a much easier time recommending this game because you kind of know what you're getting into. To close this long ass review off, I'm happy to finally have experienced this game because Project Gestalt was always thrown at my face when playing Automata. But it might be years before I touch it again because it took me 82 hours to beat this game. More than 80 hours was put into Automata, and I played that game 3 times fully, getting all the endings and everything. Let that sink in. I think I'm going to take a break from RPGs, man. I've got my RPG fixed for the next year and a half, probably more. This is by far my longest review. I can't believe I had so much to say about this game. I mean, look at this. 24 pages. This isn't a script. This is a dissertation, mate. Still, even though I say all of this, I missed it a lot. It's been so long. So, let's keep this momentum going. The next review I'll be doing will be one of the sequels of one of my favorite games of all time, Ori and the Will of the Wisp, which I know will take nowhere near as long to review. So, with that said, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, this is Stealth signing out.